الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل وتدلوا بها إلى الحكام لتأكلوا فريقا من أموال الناس بالإثم وأنتم تعلمون. And do not falsely devour the wealth of each other, taking it to the judges so that you may sinfully consume a bit of people's wealth while you are fully aware of it. We are reading Tafseer of verse number 188 of Surah Baqarah. In the previous verses, Allah Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal was talking about Siyam, fasting. Some masail of fasting were mentioned. Now, this hukm number 6 is mentioned, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is prohibiting the wealth which is not yours, which does not belong to you. You are not allowed to consume other people's property, other people's wealth falsely. There are many ways of falsely claiming other people's property. Now, in Siyam, we were not allowed to consume male halal. Halal food, halal drink was prohibited. Allah is now mentioning haram food, haram drink, haram ways of earning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ. La ta'kulu, consuming, does not just mean khana pina. Lekin consuming means usurping, taking, whether it's for eating, drinking, wearing, clothing, buying house, buying clothes, other things, cars. You should not take any wealth in a haram way to purchase these things. Everything is called akl, eating, consuming, taking other people's property. Bil batil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said falsely, because it is to exclude the legitimate ways of gaining another person's property. For example, by buying, selling, through gifts, through inheritance, through other means, profits earned by trade, tijarat, business. These are all lawful, halal. So you can take another person's money in a halal way. If he gives it to you, you inherit it, you sell him something and he gives you that money, provided everything is clear and you do the transaction in a proper manner, not in a haram way, then that is halal for you. But other ways of taking other people's property by exploiting them, there are plenty of these ways. Hazrat Allama Shabir Ahmad Usmani mentions earnings by way of theft, burglary, looting, stealing, cheating other people, tricking them, deceiving them, dishonesty, bribe, rishwat, taking bribes. You are in a high position of honor, people respect you, you take bribes from people. Rishwat is haram. Rishwat is haram. Rishwat finishes one off. It works for some time, but when that position goes, then people will start hating you. Like that police officer. Police officers in corrupt countries, they get to the high position through giving bribes of hundreds of thousands. And then they make up those hundreds of thousands within a few months. And then whatever bribes they get after that is all profit. But when they get old and they retire, then the whole town and city hate them. And then azab of Allah comes upon them because of the consuming of haram mal. So this type of humiliation, disgrace follows this haram a type of earning. Similarly, un-Islamic transactions, taking money by way of interest, opening a deposit account and getting interest from the bank, usury, sattabazi and gambling, juwa khelna. By gambling, you might make a lot of money. Like people play national lottery. They buy £10 tickets and they might win £1,000, hundreds of thousands, £1,000,000. But that £1,000,000, whose is it? Does it belong to the lottery? No, it belongs to the general public. Many people like you who pay £10, £10, £10, £20, £50, £60, £100. It's all that money gathered from other people's pocket. And that is what they give you. Why do you take other people's money for no reason? So this is lottery. All these are totally forbidden. It's all included in bil batil. La ta'kulu amwalakum bainakum bil batil. Do not consume your mal among yourselves with batil and with falsehood. Wa tudlu biha ila al-hukkam. And do not take those matters to the hukam and rulers and judges. Tudlu biha ila al-hukkam. Perhaps Allah is mahzoof before it. La ta'kulu wa la tudlu biha ila al-hukkam. Do not consume and do not lower them to the hukam. Adla yudli idlan adla dalwahu. Quran Sharif says that Yusuf alayhi salam's case, the caravan came and they put the bucket and lowered it into the well, and Yusuf alayhi salam sat in it. So lowering that rope and the bucket with the rope is the word used there is adla dalwahu, adla yudli idlaan. So you also go to the hakim ruler and you lower some things to them. Maybe you bribe them, you give them some rishwat, brown envelope from behind the back, and they judge in your favor. So do not take these types of matters to the hukam, hakim, rulers, judges, so that you may get the judgment in your favor. And litakulu fariqam min amwalin nasi bil ithmi. You can consume a part of people's property by way of sin. You will be sinning if you take other people's property by going to the hakim, ruler, and somehow forcing him or bribing him to judge in your favor, wa antum ta'lamun, whilst you know that this is haram. Now, one of the ways where wealth is usurped by means of legal system is when one lays a false claim on another person's property, and when the matter is referred to the court, he brings in false witnesses or takes false oaths or forges papers. Like the family is over here, the land is in another country, foreign country. Those who were told to look after it, they forge papers and transfer that property in their name, and the judge also decides in their favor. Many times bribes are given to them. So this is one way of doing it, taking false witnesses. And another example of this, Anwarul Bayan says, is that in certain countries, wealth is given forcefully to other people. For example, in matters of inheritance, their law is that wealth can only be inherited by the sons and not the daughters. So the sons in that country, they are Muslims, but they go to the court and take all the property in their favor and give nothing to the daughters. On the other hand, like in some countries, equality is there and they all have to be given equal. So they take the case to the court, and daughters and sons all make equal shares. Similarly, in matters of divorce, in some countries, the law is that both parties get 50-50 of the estate. So the wife, after divorce, puts a claim and gets millions from her husband, claims, whereas she does not deserve that. The court might judge in her favor, but that wealth which she will get, she is getting bil ithm wa antum ta'lamun, by way of sinning, and that wealth will not be allowed for the woman. So this is the mas'ala with regards to consuming other people's property falsely and going to the judges and rulers and somehow getting your way and taking other people's wealth by way of sin. Now, there is one mas'ala over here which is taken from a hadith. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam is reported to have said in the riwayat of Salama radiyallahu anha in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, Alaha innama ana basharun. Listen carefully, I am only a human being. Wa innakum takhtasimuna ilayya. And you bring your disputes before me, while it is possible that some of you are more proficient in contesting their case other than others. I may pass judgment in their favor according to what is presented before me. This verdict may be erroneous. Therefore, the person in whose favor I pass judgment should not consider the property of his brother as being lawful for him. It will be a spark of Jahannam which I have decreed in his favor. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you bring your cases to me, I listen to both parties. Someone is more eloquent. He's speaking very eloquently and he presents his case very beautifully. He brings his witnesses, he takes whatever custom he needs to do. And the other person is bichara, bhola bhala, innocent, naive. He was unable to express his feelings properly. He did not work properly on the case. So I decide in the favor of this person. Now, if I decided in his favor, but he knows deep down his heart that this thing does not belong to me, he should not take it. If he does take it, I am only giving him fire of Jahannam, sparks of Jahannam, coal of Jahannam. Jahannam ka angara de raha hu usko. To usko nahi lena chahiye. So give it to him. Just because I made that decision in his favor doesn't mean that it becomes halal for you. It's still haram for you. Even if I made that decision, I gave it to you. I make judgment based on what I hear. But you know deep down your heart is not yours. You must not take it. This is why they say, Ibn Kathir has narrated from Ikrimah, Mujahid, Qatada, that they said, La tukhasim wa anta ta'lam annaka zalim. Don't dispute whilst you know that you are a zalim. If you are a zalim, then don't dispute, just give it to that person. So in the case of the divorce or the miras or whatever case, even if the judge decided in your favor 50%, millions, but don't take it, give it back. It's not yours. People in the previous times used to be really amanatdar. Ibn al-Jawzi rahmatullah alayhi mentioned an incident where there was a person who was a merchant, businessman, and he had his business in a neighboring town, and he used to travel there every day or in another neighborhood in that town. Now, he secretly married another woman, their second wife, and he made, a contract with her that I won't stay here by night. I'll only stay with you during the day. At night, I have to go to my wife. I'm too scared of her. And if she agrees to give her right away, she can do so. So she gave her right of, night away. He used to work there from morning till evening. During the day at Khairullah time, they would meet. And, at night, he would be back home. Time passed. But you do get some, chugal khor. So someone somehow, whispered into the eyes of his first wife that your husband got a second wife over there. And she said, is that so? And yeah. So she investigated and she found out it's true. But she never said a word. She kept on going as though she knows nothing's happened. As long as he's fulfilling my right, he's okay with me. He comes to me every night, he sleeps here, he gives me my money. Why should I object? So she was okay. Now, as time passed, the person suddenly fell ill and he died. Now, he had a large estate, and the inheritance was distributed, and 1/8 is given to the wife, and the rest goes to their children. So 1/8 was her share, which was roughly 80,000. So she divided that into two parts, and she said, because she is the wife as well, I have to give her her share. And she gathered that 40,000 and sent it with someone. She had investigated where the other wife used to live. She knew everything. She sent the money behind him once, and she checked out. So she sent this money to the wife, and she said that, you know, my husband has died. I know he was married to you as well. This is your haqq. It's not mine. I can't take it. It's haram for me. So you take your money, your share from his miras. Now, this is her amanat dari. Look at the other wife's amanat dari. She said, yes, it's true. He married me. But sometime before his death, he divorced me. So I was separated. I don't deserve this money. Take it back to her. She sent it back. This is the amanat dari. कहाँ वो और कहाँ हम है. इस जमाने में तो औरत की पूरी कोशिश होती है कि पूरा उसका घर भी मैं ले लूंगी. I'm not going to give him a penny. He can go and be homeless and sleep on the streets. I don't care. My kids, I want a house for my kids. What type of behavior is this? And in many cases, they were only together for some time. And he himself paid for the whole house. In some cases, the father paid for the house and gifted his son. So, there was no input from theirs into the purchasing of the house. Let's say if they both worked and they both paid towards the qarz and the loan, or one's money went into loan payment and the other for the running of the house and daily, cost. And then they make agreement that this house is 50% mine, 50% yours. And then something happens and they share it 50%, 50%. That's understandable. But where she has no right, then she should not do that. So this is وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ. Now one mas'ala is mentioned over here, that qazai qazi is nafiz in zahir and batin, or only in zahir. Hazrati Aimma, and especially Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, very strong on this, that qazai qazi, the judgment of the judge, is only nafiz in zahir, not in batin, because of the hadith of Salama radiyallahu anha, which we've just read, that I'm giving him burning fire, he shouldn't take it. So Aimma Thalatha, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad, Imam Bukhari in his Sahih, they all say this, that he can't take it, whatever the case. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah also says that the person should not take it if the judgment is wrong and he knows deep down his heart. However, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi makes distinction between amlake mursala, in which qazai qazi is only nafiz zahiran, not batinan. But wherever there is asbab of milkiyat in uqud and fusukh, and qazi makes a judgment, then qazi's hukm and judgment will be nafiz zahiran and batinan. Amlaki mursala, where you put a claim on someone's property, that this land is mine, this house is mine, and you bring witnesses and qazi gives judgment in your favor, this is called amlaki mursala. So qazai qazi is nafiz, carried out, cannot be carried out zahiran nor batinan. So it's not yours, you have to give it to him, you can't keep it. But where there is matters of uqud and fusukh. Aqd like bay', shira, ijara, nikah, and fusukh meaning cancelling some contract out or some matters of that type. Then in those matters, uqud, if a person says, I bought this house from Ahmad Bhula for 100,000. Now Ahmad said, nope, I didn't sell him. Now the person brings two witnesses and he says that I bought it from him, I've paid him 100,000. Then this is a claim of a transaction. This is an aqd. So in that case, Qazi looks at the witnesses, he feels that those witnesses are reliable and he judges in favor of that person. Then in uqud, qazai qazi is nafiz, zahiran and batinan. Meaning the house will become that person's, and if he has paid Ahmad 100,000, okay, otherwise he will be told to pay him 100,000. He can pay him 100,000 and keep the house. Because this is not da'wah of milk-e mursal, this is da'wah of an aqd. Now if in uqud, in aqd and transactions as well, if qazai qazi is not accepted, then there will be no point of the qazi. काजी का कोई मतलब ही नहीं है अगर हम उसको जाहिरन उसको नाफिज न माने, तो जाहिरन उसको नाफिज मान लिया जाएगा, बातिनन अगर वो कुछ करना चाहे तो बातिनन अपना मामला ठीक करे, but zahiran it will be nafiz and he will have to hand over the house to the person, take the 100,000 for him. We provide over here the hadith of Hazrat Ali karramallahu wajhahu. Ma'ariful Quran quotes from Sayyidina Ali karramallahu wajhahu that to him a case came regarding a woman. A person said that I had made nikah with this woman and she was single, she was not married, she was single, and he said my nikah was done with this lady, and he provided two witnesses. So the two witnesses said, yes, we were present in that nikah. Nikah was done. Hazrat Ali karramallahu wajhahu said, okay, the two witnesses are here, the nikah was done, everything was legal, she is his wife. So the woman said, Hazrat, I don't know what's going on, I didn't want to marry him, I wasn't married to him, but since you made these faisla, then you do my nikah. So Hazrat Ali karramallahu wajhahu said, these two witnesses have already done your nikah, because their testimony has made you his wife, so no fresh nikah needs to be done. Go with him, you are married to him. So in these types of uqud, where the claim is of an aqd, a transaction, whether it's buying and selling, whether it's nikah, then in there qazi's faisla will be nafiz and carried out zahiran. Batinan, if he wants to cancel, that's up to him, but zahiran we have to uphold the value of the faisla and judgment of the qazi, otherwise the qaza and judiciary system will all be collapsed and no qaza and no judgment will ever remain. So this is Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi's deep understanding, and he divided into two parts. Amlak-e mursala, where there is no claim of any aqd or fasq or anything, just a mujarrad da'wah, just mere claim. So in that claim, qazai qazi is not nafiz zahiran nor batinan. The thing does not become his, he has to give it back to the rightful owner. But where there is aqd and fasq, then in there qazai qazi will be nafiz zahiran. And did I use the word right? Zahiran और बातिनन, हाँ बातिनन यानी इंदल्लाह यकसा तौर पर नाफिज और जारी हो जाएगा. Qazai qazi will be nafiz and carried out zahiran and batinan because of that hadith of Sayyidina Ali karramallahu wajhahu. So he took the dalil from there. So he made distinction between these two things. Anyhow, masla over here is that you should not take other people's property by unlawful ways, falsifully claiming it. Some wa'id over here in Sahih Muslim, there is hadith, man idda'a ma laysa lahu falaysa minna wal yatabawwa maq'adahu minan nar. Whoever unlawfully claims the property of another is not from amongst us and should prepare his abode in Jahannam. In another riwayat, "Man iqtata'a ma'al muslimin bighayri haqqihi laqiya Allah wa huwa alayhi ghadban." Whoever takes away the wealth of another person by means of false oath, then on the day of judgment he will meet Allah in such a way that Allah will be very angry with that person. Another point mentioned Anwarul Bayan over here, mean amwalin nasi. Take other people's property. Allah did not say min amwalil mu'minin. And annas includes Muslims and non-Muslims. You cannot put a claim on a non-Muslim's property and take it forcefully either. So if in Muslim lands a non-Muslim zimmi is staying, then no Muslim will be allowed to put a false claim on that person's property, on non-Muslim's property, and make it his. Same rule for Muslim, non-Muslims, because Allah said the word bil amwalin nasi bil ithmi wa antum ta'lamun. Then we move on to yas'alunaka 'anil ahillah, verse number 189. They ask you concerning the crescents, the new moons. قُلْ هِيَ مَوَاقِيتُ لِلنَّاسِ وَالْحَجِّ. Tell them that it is a stipulation of the time for the people and for the Hajj. وَلَيْسَ الْبِرُّ بِأَن تَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهَا. And virtue is not that you enter your homes from the back. وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنِ اتَّقَى. However, virtue is of that person who possesses taqwa. وَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ أَبْوَابِهَا. And enter the homes from their doors. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. And fear Allah so that you may be successful. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ. They ask you regarding al-ahillah. Ahillah is plural of hilal, and hilal means new moon, नया चांद, क्रेसेंट. झगड़ा वगड़ा बहुत लड़ाई हो रही है उस पर. तो उस जमाने में भी पूछा गया था, हुजूर, why does the moon wax and wane, and new moon, full moon, end of the month, beginning of the month? What is the hikmat behind the changing of the shape and the size of the moon? Durre Mansoor narrates from Hazrat Muaz ibn Jabal and Sa'labah ibn Sa'labah radiyallahu anhu that they asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, how does the waxing and waning of the moon occur? Initially, it appears to be a narrow thread, whereafter it steadily grows and becomes round and full. Then it gradually diminishes to return to its original size. It was in reply to this question that the above verse was revealed. This verse explains the various phases of the moon and that it assists man in calculating time as well as the seasons of Hajj. By means of this phenomenon, we determine when to fast and when women should observe their iddah. Financial transactions may also be stipulated and correctly dated by means of the phases of the moon. This is the meaning of يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ قُلْ هِيَ مَوَاقِيتُ لِلنَّاسِ وَالْحَجِّ. Tafseer Ma'arif al-Quran states that in the previous verses, some masail of fasting, roza, iftar, suhoor were mentioned, and they are all connected to Ruyat-e Hilal. This is why in this verse Allah is mentioning the mas'ala of Ruyat-e Hilal. Tafsir Uthmani states that the disk of the sun looks unchanged throughout the year. All year the sun is the same, while the moon undergoes different phases every month. This is why people ask Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam about the phases of the moon. In the previous verse, Ramadan and fasting were described. This verse points out to the new moon. The relation between the new moon and fasting is obvious. When the new moon of Ramadan appears, fasting commences. The prayers of Taraweeh start from the very night of the new moon's appearance. The description of new moon is also connected with the performance of Hajj, which is described in the coming verses. So, this is Yas'alunaka anil ahilla. Allah replied, Qul hiya mawaqitu linnasi wal hajj. It goes through these phases because it is mawaqit. It is a stipulation of the time for people and Hajj. Mawaqit is plural of miqat, which is originally from waqata yaqitu waqtan, and the word was miwqat, and waw was turned into ya, so it became miqat. And miqat is of two types, zamani and makani. Miqat is zamani, is the times of namaz, times of roza, and miqat makani is the miqat of Hajj, where you have to be in ihram before you arrive at certain points. That's called miqat makani, miqat of place, fixed places, and miqat zamani, fixed times. So moon goes through these phases because there needs to be something by which we can determine the fixed timings of Hajj and for people's affairs and matters. Now over here comes the mas'ala of lunar calendar, solar calendar. Sharia of Islam relies upon the lunar calendar for various applications. Zakat, iddatul wafat, iddatul talaq, siyam, hajj, paying off debts, fixing of timings for payments in buying and selling. So these are matters which need some fixed timings. So Shariat has connected these with the lunar calendar. So with regards to zakat, possession of nisab, one has to pay zakat upon it at the expiry of the lunar year. One cannot pay zakat according to solar year, because if he pays zakat according to solar year, then within 36 years he will have missed out zakat of 1 year, because lunar calendar is 10 days less than solar year. So in 360 days, 65 days in that calendar, 355 days in here, so you will miss out 1 year's zakat in 36 years. So zakat is based on the lunar calendar. Iddatul wafat, a woman's husband dies, she has to sit in iddat, waiting period for 4 months and 10 days. These will be determined by the lunar calendar. Iddatul talaq, a woman is given divorce. If she goes through menstruations, then 3 menstruations. If her menstruation has stopped, then she has to sit in iddat for 3 months, and these 3 months will be according to the lunar calendar. Ramzan Roza is connected to lunar calendar. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftiru li ru'yatihi." Start your fast by sighting the moon and terminate the fast by sighting it. Meaning Eidul Fitr will commence by its sighting. If you do not see the moon, then complete the fast for 30 days, narrated by Imam Muslim. Then Hajj takes place on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. Sacrificing of Qurbani takes place on the 10th, 11th, and 12th. And these are all connected to the lunar calendar. So this shows the importance of lunar calendar in the Islamic matters, Sharia matters. And this is why Mufti Shafi Sahib Rahmatullah in Mariful Quran, Mufti Ashiq Ilahi Sahib in Anwarul Bayan has said that it is farz-e kifaya to preserve the lunar calendar, meaning some members of the community must follow the lunar calendar and they must keep in mind what the lunar calendar, Hijri calendar dates are. If some practice on it, others will be excused, otherwise, all will be sinful. Then, what is the wisdom behind the lunar calendar? Hazrat Mufti Sahib states that by using the lunar calendar in religious matters mentioned above, Saum, Zakat, Hajj, Iddat, there is ease and simplicity in it. When moon is sighted as a small line on the western horizon, it is realized that the moon has begun. The month has begun. The month has started. After a few days, when the moon illuminates fully throughout the night, then we understand that this is the middle of the month, is the 14th night. And finally, when the moon wanes towards the eastern horizon, becoming unnoticed for a few nights, one gathers from this that the month is drawing to a close. If the various forms of worship were to be determined by solar calendar, then only those with relevant knowledge of astronomy would be able to deduce one month from another. It would then be necessary for every person to have a calendar. Besides this, everyone will be required to remember which months have more days and which have fewer. This would prove to be too difficult for the common person, layman. Another point to consider would be that the calendars cannot be printed in every town, nor can they be made available to every home. It is simple for every reason to determine the month by the means of lunar phases. On the other hand, the sun rises and sets in the same manner every day and every season, making it impossible to determine the different months in this manner. We see, like, let's say I borrow 100,000 from Ahmad for 6 months. Now Ahmad will keep looking at the moon for 6 months. 6 full moons pass by, and as soon as 6 full moons pass by, he'll say, by 6 months are up, give me my money back. And this is easy for any layman living in any corner of the world, any poor country. This is how the Arabs in the Middle East used to determine their timing, and this is how they determine even today as well. That they know. They keep looking, they sleep outside. The hot countries, they observe the stars, they see the moon, they notice everything, they calculate their timings and their hisab according to this. This reminds me of the other verse. هو الذي جعل الشمس ضياء والقمر نورا وقدره منازل لتعلموا عدد السنين والحساب. وقدره منازل. Allah fixed some manzils and stations for the moon so that you may know the amount of the years and your hisab and accounts. So Allah made the hisab and accounts easy. If they said that I will pay you on the 1st of Zulhijjah, so they know this month is Rajab, now Sha'ban, now Ramzan, now Shawwal, now Zulqa'dah, now 1st of Zulhijjah is here. They don't have to have a calendar in their homes. We have to have solar calendar and go by those dates. So Allah made it easy to calculate months by basing these matters on the lunar calendar. So following the lunar calendar is much easier, because remember, Islam is not only for a particular spot on the earth like England, small country like England, an island. Islam is for the whole world, from north to south, from east to west. Now, not everybody is able to follow the solar calendar. You go to Africa and areas where there's no reading, writing, which are a simple sada people. You go to poor countries, third world countries, Bangladesh, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia. So they rely on the moon. They keep looking at the moon. In fact, people who are in prisons, Guantanamo, how did they used to keep rosas in Ramzan? They used to keep looking at the moon every night. They stare at the moon, and they realize that this is this month and this is that month, and then they realize that Ramzan is here now, and they see the crescent. They say, oh, this is the month of Ramzan. They start fasting. Now they have no calendars in the prison, but through the sighting of the moon, they can determine which month it is now. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made calculation of the months easy by observing the moon. So this is the hikmah. And as we mentioned, that it is farz-e kifaya upon the Muslim community to keep the lunar calendar alive. I remember once our Hazrat Nawwarallahu Marqadahu published a small postcard for some reason, maybe Maulana Muhammad's Aqiqah. He invited people, and at the end there was the solar calendar date, whatever month and date it was, like for example 30th August 2002. So my father also received it. My father looked at it and he said, "Am I coming?" Who से बाजी? क्या मैं इस्लामी तारीख न लखेली? मैं कहीं सही है. हजरत को भी पता चल गया. I don't know how हजरत हुआ कश्फ. फिर उसके बाद हजरत ने नेक्स्ट टाइम में इस्लामी तारीख कौन सी है भाई? इस्लामी तारीख भी नीचे लिखवाई. So in our wedding cards, we should keep the Islamic tarikh alive. Don't abandon it. So it's farz-e kifaya to keep the lunar calendar and Islamic tarikh alive. This is why Allah said, "Yas'alunaka 'anil ahilla." They ask you about the crescents and the changing of the phases of the moon. قُلْ هِيَ مَوَاقِيتُ لِلنَّاسِ وَالْحَجِّ. It is to stipulate timings, fixed timings for Hajj and for people's other internal affairs and matters, like buying, selling, transaction, paying off debts, and paying off something for some reason, or other things, that I will give you this or do this or promise to do this after so much time. So that can be determined by the lunar calendar. And also, as we mentioned, iddatul wafat, iddatul talaq, and other matters. So then Allah went on to say, وَلَيْسَ الْبِرُّ بِأَن تَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهَا وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنِ اتَّقَى. Virtue is not that you come to the homes from their backs. However, virtue is of that person who has taqwa and come to the homes through their proper doors. Ibn Kathir rahmatullah alayhi narrates over here from Imam Bukhari, who narrates from Imam Sayyiduna Bara ibn Azib radiyallahu anhu, that in the times of Jahiliyyah, it was the customary of people that when they did ihram of Hajj and they proceeded towards Kaaba Sharif, and then they needed something from their homes and they came back to get that thing, then they would not come from the front door, they would go from the back door. And if there was no back door, then they would make a hole in the wall and enter from there. And they would think that this is something of virtue. Another riwayat, that when they would go for Hajj, Imam Bukhari narrates that Ansar, when they would go for Hajj and they would come back, they would not return from the front doors, they would go from back doors. One Ansari went for Hajj. When he came back, he entered the house from the front door. And he was taunted and people, bad-mouthed him. So it was on this occasion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse in connection. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the mas'ala. At the same time, there may be indication in there that this sawal of why the moon changes in various phases is something which is very clear. And Allah Pak has answered that the days of Hajj are appointed. He also described the way of re-entering while in ihram. And these types of questions may be seeming good to you, big to you, but in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're not so important. Ask important questions. Come to the houses, meaning the house of knowledge, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. From the right doors, meaning ask the right questions. And perhaps internal indication could be towards this as well, as indicated by Hazrat Allama Shabir Ahmad Usmani rahmatullahi alayhi. Wa'tul buyuta min abwabiha, come to the homes from the right doors. Wattaqullaha la'allakum tuflihun, and fear Allah so that you may prosper and you may be successful. Hazrat Mufti Ashiq Ilahi Sahab rahmatullah alayhi writes good point over here. It is an innovation bid'ah to attribute any sin or reward for an action initiated by oneself. You initiate one action yourself, and then you say, for this you get this sawab, and for this you get this warning and guna. That's not right. The Ansar and the people of Jahiliyyah in the time of Jahiliyyah, Aus Khazraj did this, that this is something of virtue. But no, virtues are determined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So going from the back of the house is not an act of virtue, it's a bid'at, it's an innovation. So don't make up your own things and say this is virtue or this is sin. Virtue and sin is determined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why Allah said, وَلَيْسَ الْبِرُّ بِأَنْ تَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهَا. It is not an act of virtue that you come to the homes from their backs. وَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ أَبْوَابِهَا. Continue coming from the front doors as you normally do in other matters, but don't make up such matters yourselves. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. He mentions over here from Ahkamul Quran of Jassas Razi rahmatullahi alayhi, that the principle derived from here is that actions which have not been ordained by Allah as acts of reward, have not been encouraged by Him, can never become such by the dictates of anyone. It can never be deemed part of deen, nor a means of gaining qurb and proximity to Allah. None should hold the belief that it is part of deen either. An example is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited total silence during the entire day, since the Sharia of Islam does not sanction a fast of silence. Once Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw a person standing in the sun and inquired from the Sahaba, "What is the matter with this person?" They replied that he had vowed not to speak to anyone, nor to take any shade of a building or a tree or anything. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah is ghani and free from this type of mannat and vow. He instructed him to take shade and to speak to people and not make these types of vows and mannats again in future. So we should not make up our own things, rather be content with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us. It is Allah's job to determine virtue and vice, so we follow instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, we will continue from verse number 190 in the next lesson, which will not be next week, inshallah, after 3 weeks. कौन सा Tuesday है after 3 weeks? हाँ, वो गड़बड़ हो जाएगी ना. ओ ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह. 29th को तो हम वापस आएंगे, तो 5th सितंबर को जब स्कूल शुरू होगी तो उस वक्त हमारा दर्स भी शुरू होगा इंशाअल्लाह. सुब्हानकल्लाहुम्मा बिहम्दिक नशहदु अल्ला इलाहा इल्ला अंत नस्तगफिरुका व नतूबु इलैक. परवरदिगार आलम, हमारे यहाँ उठना बैठना कहना सुनना कबूल फरमाइए. जो कुछ पढ़ा उसको हमारे दिल में बिठाइए, अमल की तौफीक अता फरमाइए. कुरान शरीफ को पढ़ने, समझने और उस पर अमल करने की तौफीक अता फरमाइए. या अल्लाह, हमें या अल्लाह राह रास्त पर चलाइए, तकवा और परहेजगारी अता फरमाइए, खौफ खुदा नसीब फरमाइए. हम सब से राजी हो जाइए. जो हजरात उम्रे में गए हैं उनकी हाजिरी कबूल फरमाइए. जो जा रहे हैं, इरादा किए हुए हैं, उनके लिए सफर आसान फरमाइए. आफियत से ले जाइए, वहाँ की बरकत नसीब फरमाइए और आफियत से वापस लाइए. रब्बना तक़ब्बल मिन्ना इन्नका अंतस समीउल अलीम व तुब अलैना इन्नका अंतत तव्वाबुर रहीम. व सल्लल्लाहु व सल्लिम अला सय्यिदिना मुहम्मद व आलिहि व सहबिहि अजमईन बिरहमतिका.